my friends. Happy Sunday. Our church and everything is canceled here this morning because our roads are still not, our side roads and like subdivisions and stuff are not plowed. Um, and the cars have gone over them a lot, so they've turned to ice overnight and they're really bad. Like there's a ton of ice everywhere on driveways and roads. So they're advising people to stay off the roads, but it's gonna be 51 tomorrow. It was 40 something today and 51 tomorrow. So hopefully that will melt this wretched ice. Because I'm over it. I'm over winter already. Well, I'm done. I'm ready to move on. Like I was ready to move on before it snowed. I'm ready to get my convertible and go for a ride in the sun in a few weeks. All right, enough complaining. It's the Lord's Day. All right, January 12th. Jacob sends gifts to Esau. Genesis 32, 1 through 21. As Jacob started on his way again, angels of God came to meet him. When Jacob saw them, he exclaimed, "This is God's camp." So he named the place Mahanaim. Then Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau, who was living in the region of Seir in the land of Edom. He told them, "Give this message to my master Esau. Humble greetings from your servant Jacob. Until now I have been living with Uncle Laban, and now I own cattle, donkeys, flocks of sheep, and goats, and many servants, both men and women. I have sent these messengers to inform my lord of my coming, hoping that you will be friendly to me." After delivering the message, the messengers returned to Jacob and reported, "We met your brother Esau, and he is already on his way to meet you, with an army of 400 men." Jacob was terrified at the news. He divided his household, along with the flocks and herds and camels, into two groups. He thought, if Esau meets one group and attacks it, perhaps the other can escape. Then Jacob prayed, "O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, you told me, return to your own land and your relatives, and you promised me, I will treat you kindly. I am not worthy of all the unfailing love and faithfulness you have shown to me, your servant. When I left, when I left home and crossed the Jordan River, I owned nothing except a walking stick. Now my household fills two large camps. O Lord, from please rescue me from the hand of my brother Esau. I am afraid that he is coming to attack me, along with my wives and children. But you promised me, I will surely treat you kindly, and I will multiply your descendants until they become as numerous as the sands along the seashore, too many to count." Jacob stayed where he was for the night. Then he selected these gifts from his possessions to present to his brother Esau: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 female camels and their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He divided these animals into herds and assigned each to different servants. Then he told his servants, "Go ahead of me with the animals, but keep some distance between the herds." He gave these instructions to the men leading the first group. "When my brother Esau meets you, he will ask, whose servants are you? Where are you going? Who owns these animals?" You must reply, "They belong to your servant Jacob, but they are a gift for his master Esau. Look, he is coming right behind us." Jacob gave the same instruction to the second and third herdsmen and to all who followed behind the herds. You must say the same thing to Esau when you meet him, and be sure to say, "Look, your servant Jacob is right behind us." Jacob thought, "I will try to appease him by sending gifts ahead of me. When I see him in person, perhaps he will be friendly to me." So the gifts were sent on ahead, while Jacob himself spent that night in the camp. Jacob wrestles with God, Genesis 32, 22 through 32. During the night, Jacob got up and took his two wives, his two servants, and his 11 sons and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all of his possessions. This left Jacob alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until dawn began to break. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of socket. Then the man said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" the man asked. He replied, "Jacob." "Your name will no longer be Jacob," the man told him. "From now on you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won." "Please tell me your name, Jacob." "Please tell me your name," Jacob said. "Why do you want to know my name?" The man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there. Jacob named the place Peniel, which means face of God, for he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. The sun was rising as Jacob left Peniel, and he was limping because of the injury to his hip. Even today, the people of Israel don't eat the tendon near the hip socket because of what happened that night when the man strained the tendon of Jacob's hip. Jacob and Esau make peace. Genesis 33, 1 through 20. Then Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and his two servant wives. He put the servant wives and their children at the front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob went on ahead as he approached his brother, and he bowed to the ground 7 times before him. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him, and they both wept. Then Esau looked at the women and children and asked, Who are these people with you? These are the children God has graciously given me, your servant. Jacob replied. Then the servant wives came forward with their children and bowed before him. Next came Leah with her own children, and they bowed before him. Finally, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed before him. And what were all the flocks and herds I met as I came? Esau asked. Jacob replied, They are a gift, my lord, to ensure your friendship. My brother, I have plenty. Esau answered, Keep what you have for yourself. But Jacob insisted, No, if I have found favor with you, please accept this gift from me. And what a relief to see your friendly smile. It is like seeing the face of God. Please take this gift I have brought you, for God has been very gracious to me. I have more than enough. And because Jacob insisted, Esau finally accepted the gift. Well, Esau said, Let's be going. I will lead the way. But Jacob replied, You can see, my lord, that some of my children are very young, and the flocks and herds have their young too. If they are driven too hard, even for one day, all the animals could die. Please, my lord, go ahead of your servant. We will follow slowly at a pace that is comfortable for the livestock and children. I will meet you at Seir. All right, Esau said, but at least let me assign some of my men to guide and protect you. Jacob responded, That's not necessary. It's enough that you've received me warmly, my lord. So Esau turned around and started back to Seir that same day. Jacob, on the other hand, traveled on to Succoth. There he built himself a house and made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place is named Succoth, which means shelters. Later, having traveled all the way from Paddan Aram, Jacob arrived safely at the town of Shechem in the land of Canaan. There he set up camp outside the town. Jacob bought the plot of land where he camped from the family of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver. And there he built an altar and named it El Elohe Israel. Revenge against Shechem. Genesis 34, 1 through 31. One day, Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, went to visit some of the young women who lived in the area. But when the local prince, Shechem, son of Hamor the Hittite, saw Dinah, he seized her and raped her. But then he fell in love with her, and he tried to win her affection with tender words. He said to his father Hamor, Get me this young girl. I want to marry her. Soon Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah. But since his sons were out in the fields herding livestock, he said nothing until they returned. Hamor, Shechem's father, came to discuss the matter with Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons had come in from the field, and as soon as they heard what had happened, they were shocked and furious that their sister had been raped. Shechem had done a disgraceful thing against Jacob's family, something that should never have been done. When Hamor tried to speak with Jacob and his sons, My son Shechem is truly in love with your daughter. He said, Please let him marry her. In fact, let's arrange other marriages too. You give us your daughters for our sons, and we will give you our daughters for your sons. And you may live among us. The land is open to you. Settle here and trade with us, and feel free to buy property in the area. Then Shechem himself spoke to Dinah's father and brothers. Please be kind to me and let me marry her. He begged, I will give you whatever you ask, no matter what dowry or gift you demand. I will gladly pay it. Just give me the girl as my wife. But since Shechem had defiled their sister, Dinah, Jacob's sons responded deceitfully to Shechem and his father Hamor. They said to them, We couldn't possibly allow this because you're not circumcised. It would be a disgrace for our sister to marry a man like you. But here is the solution. If every man among you is circumcised like we are, then we will give you our daughters and will take your daughters for ourselves. We will live among you and become one people. But if you don't agree to be circumcised, we will take her and be on our way. Hamor and his son Shechem agreed to their proposal. Shechem wasted no time in acting on this request, for he wanted Jacob's daughter desperately. Shechem was a highly respected member of his family, and he went with his father Hamor to present this proposal to the leaders at the town gate. "These men are our friends," they said. "Let's invite them to live here among us and trade freely. Look, the land is large enough to hold them. We can take their daughters as wives and let them marry ours. But they will consider but they will consider staying here and becoming one people with us only if all of our men are circumcised just as they are. But if we do this, all of their livestock and possessions will eventually be ours. Come, let's agree to their terms and let them settle here among us." So all the men in the council agreed with Hamor and Shechem, and every male in the town was circumcised. But 3 days later, when their wounds were still sore, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, who were Dinah's full brothers, took their swords and entered the towns without opposition. Then they slaughtered every male there, including Hamor and his son Shechem. They killed them with their swords. Then they took Dinah from Shechem's house and returned to their camp. Meanwhile, the rest of Jacob's sons arrived. Finding the men slaughtered, they plundered the town because their sister had been defiled there. They seized all the flocks and herds and donkeys, everything they could lay their hands on, both inside the town and outside in the fields. They looted all their wealth and plundered their houses. They also took all their little children and wives and led them away as captives. Afterward, Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have ruined me. You've made me stink among all the people of this land. Among among all the Canaanites and Perizzites, we are You have ruined me. You have made me stink among all the people of this land, among all the Canaanites and Perizzites. We are so few that they will join forces and crush us. It will be ruined. I will be ruined, and my entire household will be wiped out." "But why should we let him treat our sister like a prostitute?" they retorted angrily. Jacob's return to Bethel, Genesis 35, 1 through 15. Then God said to Jacob, "Get ready and move to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar there to the God who appeared to you and fled from your brother when you fled from your brother Esau." So Jacob told everyone in his household, "Get rid of all your pagan idols, purify yourselves, and put on clean clothing. We are now going to Bethel, where I will build an altar to the God who answered my prayers. When I was in distress, he has been with me wherever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all their pagan idols and earrings, and he buried them under the great tree near Shechem. As they set out, a terror from God spread over the people in all the towns of that area, so no one attacked Jacob's family. Eventually, Jacob and his household arrived at Luz, also called Bethel, in Canaan. Jacob built an altar there named the named the place El Bethel, which means God of Bethel, because God happened to appear to him there when he was fleeing from his brother Esau. Soon after this, Rebekah's old nurse, Deborah, died. She was buried beneath the oak tree in the valley below Bethel. Ever since, the tree has been called Allen Bacuth, which means oak of weeping. Now that Jacob had returned from Paddan Aram, God appeared to him again at Bethel. God blessed him, saying, "Your name is Jacob, but you will not be called Jacob any longer. From now on, your name will be Israel." So God renamed him Israel. Then God said, "I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. You will become a great nation, even many nations. Kings will be among your descendants, and I will give you the land I once gave to Abraham and Isaac. Yes, I will give it to you and your descendants after you." Then God, then God went up from the place where he had spoken to Jacob. Jacob set up a stone pillar to mark the place where God had spoken to him. Then he poured wine over it as an offering to God and anointed the pillar with olive oil. And Jacob named the place Bethel, which means house of God, because God had spoken to him there. The death of Rachel, Genesis 35, 16 through 27. Leaving Bethel, Jacob and his clan moved on toward Ephrath. But Rachel went into labor while they were still some distance away. Her labor pains were intense. After a very hard delivery, the midwife finally exclaimed, "Don't be afraid, you have another son." Rachel was about to die, but with her last breath, she named the baby Ben Oni, which means son of my sorrow. The baby's father, however, called him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. Jacob set up a stone monument over Rachel's grave, and it can be seen there to this day. Then Jacob traveled on and camped beyond Migdal Eder. While he was living there, Reuben had intercourse with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Jacob soon heard about it. These are the names of the 12 sons of Jacob. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's oldest son, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's servant, were Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Zilpah, Leah's servant, were Gad and Asher. These are the names of the sons who were born to Jacob at Paddan Aram. So Jacob returned to his father Isaac in Mamre, which is near Kiriath Arba, now called Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac both lived as foreigners. Ooh, my lower back is super sore. All right. We're on to chapter 11 of Learning to Live Above. Going out of busyness. Psalm 33:22. May your unfailing love rest upon us, O Lord, even as we put our hope in you. One day while I was at the beach, and I noticed One day while I was at the beach, I noticed a rather funny sight. Standing at the edge of the ocean was a small white bird searching for food in the sand. He would rummage through the sand until the waves would rush toward him, in which case he would run toward the shore as fast as he could, fully incorporating his tiny little legs in order to escape the rushing water. As soon as the waves would recede back into the massive ocean, the little bird would quickly run back into the freshly washed sand and search for food again. But unfortunately, as soon as he arrived at his rummaging spot, the waves would rush in again, sending him running for his life. He spent his entire time running back and forth, trying to get food, then trying to escape the waves. He worked so hard, but with nothing to show for it. I stood there for several minutes, smiling at the bizarre predicament this little creature had found himself in, when it suddenly dawned on me. I was the busy little bird. I spend a great deal of time running and taking care of the everyday tasks that consume my life, running to manage all of the responsibilities and expectations that surround me, running to locate the dreams that are set before me, and running to accomplish everything that my mind has stored. All the while, I am running to escape and avoid pitfalls and disasters that rush in to engulf me. At times, it feels as though I work so hard with nothing to show for it. The problem for this little bird was his positioning. Other birds were content to sit atop the waves and wait for their food to come along. Others were peacefully soaring above, patiently looking for their opportunity to strike. And others still were calmly walking along the shore, well away from the rushing waves, picking up food that was made available to them. All these creatures were waiting, soaring, and walking in their purpose, and they did not have to seek out the opportunities because the opportunities were coming to them. They were positioned away from the continual motions of the waves, therefore they were safe from the dangers. They were not running in futility, but peacefully walking in their purpose. It was all about their position. Unlike the rest, this little bird had positioned himself in the busiest, most tumultuous place and had nothing to show for it. How many times do we position ourselves outside of the presence of God, thus finding ourselves in the middle of busyness, stress, and frustration? We are working harder, but having fewer results, left feeling stressed out, completely frustrated. Oh my gosh. Yes, completely frustrated. I can't read. I keep losing my place. My eyes are crossing. The harder we work and search, the more frustrated we become. As a parent and a wife, I often find myself trapped in the sea of busyness, rushing to chauffeur kids from one place to the next, scrambling to find something to fix dinner, wrestling with homework problems, and then grappling with bedtime routines. All the while, I'm struggling to find some time with my husband, as well as some much needed moments of solitude. At the end of this busyness, I look around at what appears to be the futility of my actions and wonder, am I getting anything done? God addressed this very situation with his people in Haggai 1:6. He said, "You have planted much, but harvested little. You eat, but never enough. You drink, but never have your fill. You put on clothes, but are not warm. You earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it." Basically, he was telling his people that you are working yourselves to death, but have nothing to show for it. Why is this happening? God tells us in verse 9, "Because of my house, which remains a ruin, while each of you are busy with his own house." God sheds some light on their predicament by telling them that this is happening because they have become too busy with their own stuff and forget about him. They are trying to accomplish everything themselves and have abandoned his house, his presence. In his presence there is great joy, supernatural peace, and overwhelming love. There is no striving or stress, no frustration or worry, just him. When we busy ourselves with him, then we will see our lives begin to declutter. When we seek him first, we will find greater fruitfulness with less striving. When we position ourselves in his presence, opportunities will seek after us instead of us seeking them. When we take a moment to rest in Him, we will find rest for our weary souls. It is much easier to busy ourselves with daily activities and mental lists than to busy ourselves with God. But when we choose that way, the path Sorry, my alarm just went off. Let me go back a couple sentences. When we position ourselves in his presence, opportunities will seek after us instead of us seeking them. When we take a moment to rest in him, we will find rest for our weary souls. It is much easier to busy ourselves with daily activities and mental lists than to busy ourselves with God. But when we choose that way, the path is much more difficult. I decided to put this notion to the test. The day set before me was one filled with lots of activities and stress. The easier thing to do was to get up early and to get started right away. But I knew that I wanted to apply this newly grasped concept of busying myself with God. So I started my morning with praise, not focusing on my deadlines, but remembering how good God has been to me. As I went through my daily tasks, I kept my mind busy with thoughts of God and how beautiful this day was he had created. I kept worship music near my ears when possible, and near my heart when not. As I approached each difficulty and problem, I quietly asked God for his strength, wisdom, and guidance, choosing not to focus on the problems, but on how many times God had come through for me. Each step was different and at times uncomfortable because so many years I have trained my mind to worry, but I used praise and thankfulness to help me press through. I was completely amazed at how much I accomplished that day with what felt like little effort. It was truly supernatural. Although I would like to pass on the notion that I sailed through my day without a hitch, there were moments when I slid back into my old ways of busyness. But God gave me such grace, picking me up and putting me back on the path. After experiencing His joy and peace in this new way, I want to live my whole life like this, and I pray that you will feel challenged to do the same. It will take some time to adjust, but God will help you through every step. I believe that it is time for us to position ourselves in God's presence, and it is time for us to have a going out of busyness sale. Okay. I hope I'm back. I hope I'm unfrozen. My alarm went off and it freezes everything up. Drives me nutty. All right, my friends, let's go ahead and end our morning in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we praise you today. We praise you for all that you've done for us, for your love for us, for the grace that you give us, the mercy that you give us each day, the undeserved gifts you give us each day. God, we just thank you for the God that you are, the God of peace and love and grace and mercy. God, we just pray that you will help us today to live in your presence through the day, to recognize your presence in our day all around us, and to worship you through our day, to make you the focal point of all of our days, but especially on Sunday. God, I lift each person up to you today with all of the many concerns and worries and struggles that are going on. You know each and every one of them. You know what's going on in the heart of your people, in the lives of your people. God, we just pray for your provision and your strength and your courage and your grace and your mercy today for each and every one of them here that has something going on in their lives. God, our choices often do not honor you. And I know that it is such a difficult journey for so many of us, God, but we pray for your continued strength. Help us to surrender our journey to you, to lay it down at your feet, to give each part of our journey, especially when it's hard, over to you, and just keep our focus on the one who created us, the one who loves us, and the one who wants us to thrive. Help us to shift our focus this day, today, this Sunday. In your precious name I pray. Amen. All right. Well, thank you for joining me this morning. I'm sipping on my creamy coffee. Good. It's a little sweet. It's a little not half and half, but I won't die. It's good ish. Takes some getting used to not having half and half in your coffee. This is my second cup this week. I mean, yesterday and today. I haven't died yet without my half and half. And I'll get back into my trend of doing it every day, and then this will be my preference for a while, and then somebody will pour some half and half in my coffee, and I'll struggle again, but anyway. Alright, girls, I love you. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have a blessed Sunday today. I hope you get to go to church and hang out with God's people and just be blessed today and get ready for this upcoming week of, honoring our bodies with our honoring our God with our bodies. Alright, you guys.